You're a high achieving woman who's done years of therapy. You know your patterns, and you're still anxious in relationships, still overthinking, can't speak your needs, and settling for scraps. I'm Tiff. I've spent over $45,000 and 8 years trying to figure out how I could have several degrees, serve in the military, work at the CIA, top management consulting firms, and run my own company, but still be chasing emotionally unavailable women and spending 90% of my day obsessing over relationships I knew weren't good for me. Here's the linchpin, the one thing that hundreds of hours of therapy, self help books, and podcasts never taught me. Relationship anxiety is not happening in your mind, it's happening in your body. And you cannot solve a body based pattern with mind based tools. Before we talk about why therapy hasn't worked, I need you to understand the root of your relationship anxiety, the overthinking, overgiving, and settling in love. I'll go through three parts. Part one, the root. Part two, the science of change. Part three, the three-step process to heal and rewire painful relationship patterns at the root. Part one, the root. Between the ages of 6 and 10, we develop our love operating system. We learn what we need to do to receive love, attention, and approval. After a decade of learning, synthesizing, and moving through my own struggles, I learned that it's very common for high achieving women born in the 80s to earn love. I call this the hustle for love pattern. You may call it anxious attachment. Here's why this is common. Kids born in the 80s were part of the figure it out yourself generation. Parents were doing the best they could, but it was not very good. Your parents, they aren't monsters, but they had their own trauma, their own experiences, and they didn't have access to tools to help them heal. The 80s were a unique time period. Divorce rates doubled. Working moms nearly doubled. Latchkey kids tripled. And 62% of Gen X experienced adverse childhood events. Think alcoholism, divorce, verbal abuse, physical abuse, and only 11% ever got help. Said more directly, growing up with emotionally unavailable parents was very common if you were a kid in the 80s. Therefore, stuffing down your feelings was normal. Feeling alone with your feelings, intolerating, yelling, fighting, and some sort of instability or chaos in the household. All of these things were really common. Because of this, you learned love was inconsistent, conditional, or not available. Because love was inconsistent, up and down, the body registered this with threat. The nervous system learned love comes and goes. So it sounded the alarm. And it responded like a tiger was chasing you. The survival response. Love was wired with threat. And what fires together, wires together. Said more directly, your body went into survival mode. This often feels like angst all over your body, a lump in your throat, in a pit in your stomach. This survival adaptation happens before conscious thought. The pattern originates from the brainstem. Because love was inconsistent, conditional, or not available, you had to adapt your behavior. The most common adaptation for high achieving women is the fawn response. You learned to put everyone else first to earn love. You disconnected from yourself and your needs and your most authentic version of yourself. You became the person everyone else needed you to be. Because if you had feelings or needs, this would burden others and could threaten love, attention, or approval, and could potentially threaten physical or emotional safety. You fawned by pushing down your feelings, fixing, housekeeping, caretaking your parents or your siblings. You became the good girl, got the good grades, played the sports, did everything you could to earn scraps of love and approval. This fawning pattern, it makes you a total powerhouse at work. But this is exactly why relationships feel hard and why you're riddled with anxiety and you cannot stop overthinking, overgiving, and settling in love. Said directly, you are hardwired for relationship anxiety. You are not simply worthy of love by being. You learned you must earn love. You're simply repeating the exact same hustle for love pattern that was hardwired into your mind and body between the ages of 6 and 10. Little you, she was brilliant. Always putting others first, earning scraps of love, attention, and approval. But this pattern is simply outdated. This is why you are naturally drawn to emotionally unavailable partners. The push and the pull relationships. Ooh, they feel like home. And you are hardwired to overgive and settle for scraps of love, tolerate chaos, and stay too long when your needs aren't met. And you're really good at justifying staying too long because you had to. This is how you adapted when you were a kid. And overthinking comes naturally. You've always had to anticipate others' needs. At this point, it's very likely that you're stuck in your head 80 to 90% of the time. It may feel like your brain is broken and it feels almost intolerable, noisy. I call this a squirrel emporium, thought zipping around. In fact, you may overthink everything. I need you to lean in. I need you to really hear this. This fact gave me an immense amount of relief. I learned that the more survival energy that you have stacked in the body, the more your body thinks it's unsafe. And after decades of not releasing the survival energy, not completing the stress response, it stacks and it stacks. The more your body feels unsafe, the more your brain takes over to try to create safety. It's literally scanning for tigers, trying to keep you safe. You are not broken. This is just science. Now that we've laid the foundation, let's break down why talk therapy cannot heal relationship anxiety. Neuroscientists Paul MacLean and Daniel Siegel mapped out where change actually happens. And here's what they found. The brain has 3 layers, and they don't all respond to the same tools. Picture an iceberg. At the tip, above the water, is the cortex, your thinking brain. This is where insight lives, where language lives, where the I know my pattern lives. For example, this is your knowing I'm anxiously attached. I attract emotionally unavailable partners. I overgive and stay too long. Just below the surface is the limbic system. This is where patterns live emotionally. You can feel the patterns, but you can't stop them. For example, you can feel yourself reeling when she or he doesn't text back. You're deeply triggered, anxiety everywhere. You know you're irrational, but you cannot stop. And then there's the root below that, the brainstem. This is where survival responses originate, stored as physical tension and automatic reaction before a single conscious thought forms. This is the part you haven't reached with your years or decades of inner work. Let me show you why. The 2 most common types of therapy you've probably done: CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, the most widely used form of talk therapy. You identify your thought patterns, you challenge them, you replace them. It's incredibly valuable, genuinely helpful, all focused on the brain, thinking, the cortex level. Psychodynamic therapy, you trace patterns back to childhood. Understand why you show up the way you do in relationships. Also valuable. Again, focused on the brain. You're accessing childhood memories using the thinking brain. Now, if you have an exceptional therapist, they may have brought in some body-based tools, breath work, nervous system tools, maybe even somatic experiencing, learning to feel what's happening to your body. That touches the limbic system just below the surface. That's meaningful, but here's the thing. This does not heal the root, the survival response that originates from the brainstem. These tools help you regulate the nervous system. So you become aware of your patterns and regulate the nervous system. These are phenomenal things in both forms of coping. Healing is when you release the pattern at the root. Healing is when your mind and your body are finally on the same page. They both reject self-sacrifice. The highs of your situationship are no longer worth the lows. The mind and body are now on the same page. Here's the science on why this matters. When you get triggered, when she goes quiet or he pulls away, your amygdala fires. The amygdala is your brain's threat detector. And when it fires, it shuts down access to your prefrontal cortex. Your thinking brain goes offline. The insight you spent years building in therapy, completely inaccessible at that exact moment when you need it the most. This is why you leave therapy feeling clear with a pep in your step, and then one text sends you completely sideways. This is why you know better and you still go back to that relationship and still shrink and stay too long. Let me be very direct. Biology will always be stronger than willpower. Period. Every time. That body-based pattern is running your relationships. It's likely you're sitting here thinking, Tiff, I've done years or decades of inner work. I know my patterns, but I still keep doing the same damn things in relationships. I must be broken. I'm stuck in my head. There's something wrong with me. You are not broken. This is science. The survival pattern is doing exactly what it's built to do. You've been using therapy and books, mind based tools to solve a body based problem. That is not a personal failure. This is just science. Now let's shift gears and dig into how to actually heal the root. Part three. So, what does it look like to work at the brainstem level? I call this the 3R method, and it's the framework I built after spending 8 years full time and over $45,000 fixing myself. The core focus: reconnect to yourself and your needs and repattern putting yourself first without guilt. This is the path to peace, fulfillment, and healthy relationships. The first step: regulate. To access and heal the root, your nervous system must be regulated. This isn't bubble baths and breathing apps. This is building a me first, mind and body operating system to curate your feel good state every day. Your personalized toolkit to regulate your nervous system, train your focus, and build healthy habits you actually love. You train to be truly present in the moment each day and connected to your needs, and then consciously prioritize your needs and make decisions you love all day long. The second part of the 3R method is release. This is where the real work happens. We discharge survival energy that's been stored in your body since childhood. Your nervous system never got to complete the stress response. We finish it. Peter Levine's research on neurogenic tremors showed us the body actually knows how to do this. We just have to give it the right conditions. And here's what's most incredible. Once that survival energy releases, self-sacrifice then feels intolerable. You are no longer able to shrink your needs or to stuff down your truth. Once that energy releases, you don't have to white knuckle new behavior. The old pattern just does not fit with your mind or body anymore. The third phase of the 3R model: rewire. Now you need to repattern putting yourself first without guilt. You need personalized tools, repetition, and a supportive community, not a one size fits all program. This is where secure attachment stops being a concept you learned in a book and starts being how you actually move through the world. I mean, with this sturdiness, you're magnetic. You're the you-iest version of you. You finally trust yourself. You stand in your truth and your power, and you are the fullest, most authentic version of yourself. Now, not only is the 3R method a proven system, it's also measurable. My clients come in averaging a 15 out of 50 on the relationship fulfillment score, and within 90 days, they're at a 45 out of 50 on average. Not because they tried harder, but because they finally had the right tools for the right layer to finally heal the root and repattern putting themselves first without guilt. If this landed for you, I go much deeper on the science and the full framework in my free workshop. The link is in the description below. It's free and it'll transform how you see every relationship pattern you've ever been stuck in. I hope to see you in there.